I stood in the bookstore corner, watching the clock tick toward 2:30, my hand smoothing the same crease on my dress for the 10th time. The chairs were arranged in neat rows, 23 of them. I'd counted twice. The bookstore manager, Mrs. Peterson, had set out a small table with a stack of my novels, Echoes of Tomorrow, each one bearing my name in gold letters. Elena Hartley, my name, my book, my impossible dream made real. But the chairs stayed empty except for 3 strangers who'd wandered in from the street, curious about the setup. I checked my phone again. Nothing. They'd promised. Mum had held my hand at breakfast, said she was proud. Dad had kissed my forehead, told me he'd be in the front row. And Lily, my younger sister, my shadow, my family's darling, she'd hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might crack, whispering that she wouldn't miss this for the world. The bookstore manager touched my shoulder gently. "We can start whenever you're ready, dear." I nodded, my throat tight. Just a few more minutes. But those minutes bled into 15, then 20. The 3 strangers left. Mrs. Peterson tried to hide her pity behind a professional smile. I read from my book to empty chairs, my voice echoing in the silence, each word feeling like a confession to ghosts. Afterward, I sat at my signing table, pen ready, waiting for anyone. A teenager bought a copy, asked me to sign it to Rachel. I wrote the inscription with shaking hands, grateful for even that small acknowledgement. At 4 o'clock, I packed my things. Mrs. Peterson helped me carry the unsigned books back to the storage room. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I drove home with my phone silent beside me, my mind creating excuses for them. Traffic, emergency, something important, something justified. The house was dark when I arrived. I walked inside, set my purse on the counter and saw the note on the refrigerator in Mom's handwriting. At Dr. Morrison's with Lily. Dentist appointment ran late. Dinner in the fridge. Love you. A dentist appointment. I stood there, staring at those words until they blurred. A routine cleaning. A Thursday afternoon checkup that had been scheduled for 3 months. I'd seen it on the family calendar, right beneath the date I'd circled in red marker. Eleanor's book signing. They'd chosen it anyway. Chosen her comfort over my dream. Her mundane necessity over my once-in-a-lifetime moment. I walked upstairs to my room, the room they had never updated past my teenage years because Lily needed the bigger space. Lily needed the better lighting. Lily needed everything, and I needed to understand. I sat on my bed and opened my phone. Social media showed me everything I'd missed. My college friends posting about their achievements, other debut authors celebrating their signings with families crowded around them, rooms packed with supporters. I scrolled through images of joy I couldn't touch. The front door opened, around 6. Voices floated up. Mom's laugh, Dad's low rumble, Lily's bright chatter about how the hygienist complimented her flossing technique. I didn't go downstairs. Mum knocked on my door an hour later. "Elena? Sweetie, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. My voice sounded normal. I'd always been good at that. "How was the signing?" I paused, weighing honesty against the peace of lying. "It was good. I'm so sorry we couldn't make it. Lily's appointment just... I know, I saw the note." Silence on the other side of the door, then, "We'll come to the next one." There wouldn't be a next one. Publishers didn't give second chances to authors whose first books barely sold. Mrs. Peterson had told me gently that they'd ordered 50 copies. 43 remained. "Sure, Mom." Her footsteps retreated. I lay back on my bed and stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. 7 major ones, dozens of smaller fractures spreading like a map of broken things. That night at dinner, Lily talked about dental school, her applications, her perfect grades. Mum and Dad listened with the attention they'd perfected over 23 years of her existence. I ate quietly, my book signing already forgotten in the rhythm of their familiar conversation. "Eleanor, you're quiet," Dad said, finally noticing me. "Just tired." "The signing must have been exhausting," Mum offered. "Standing all day, talking to so many people." I didn't correct her imagination of crowds that never came. I just nodded. Lily reached across the table, squeezed my hand. "I really am sorry we missed it, but you understand, right? The dentist appointment was scheduled months ago." So was my signing. I told them the date the moment I'd received it. 6 months of notice. Half a year to mark calendars, to remember, to show up for the daughter who'd spent her whole life showing up for them. "I understand," I said. And I did. I understood perfectly. I understood that I would always be secondary. The dependable one who didn't need coddling. The strong one who could handle disappointment. The eldest daughter, whose dreams were expected to flourish without sunlight, without water, without anyone watching them grow. The next weeks passed in a haze of normalcy. I went to my job at the library, shelving books I hadn't written, checking out stories that weren't mine. My novel sat on the local author's shelf, gathering dust between a cookbook and a self-published mystery. Lily got accepted to her top-choice dental school. We celebrated with champagne and Mum's special lasagna. I toasted her success, meant it genuinely, felt the familiar ache of being happy for her while hollow for myself. My publisher sent an email. Sales were disappointing. They wouldn't be picking up the option for my second book. I read the message 3 times, then closed my laptop and went to bed at 7 p.m. Nobody noticed I'd stopped writing. Months blurred together. Winter came. Lily had a crisis with her roommate. Mom drove 5 hours to comfort her. I had a crisis with my medication. I handled it alone. The pattern held firm. Predictable as seasons. On a Thursday in February, I felt strange. A pressure in my chest that wouldn't ease. I dismissed it as anxiety, the depression I'd been managing since the signing. But the pressure grew. I drove myself to the hospital, hands trembling on the wheel. The ER doctor looked concerned. Tests were run. Results came back wrong. "Miss Hartley, we need to admit you." I called Mum. It went to voicemail. I called Dad. Same. I called Lily, and she answered breathless, laughing. "Elena, can't talk. We're at this amazing restaurant for my roommate's birthday. What's up?" "I'm at the hospital," I said. "Oh no, are you okay? Wait, hold on." Muffled sounds, then Lily's distant voice to someone else. "It's my sister. She's at the hospital." Then back to me. "Elena? Is it serious? Can it wait? We're literally about to order—" "It's fine," I said. "Go have fun." "Are you sure? I can call you later." "It's fine, Lily." I hung up. Lay in the hospital bed alone. The IV dripped something cold into my veins. Nurses came and went with sympathetic smiles. Doctors spoke about complications I didn't fully understand, my heart doing things it shouldn't, rhythms wrong. They came the next day, all 3 of them, bearing flowers and guilt. Mum cried. Dad looked stricken. Lily held my hand too tight. They apologised, explained how they hadn't checked their phones, how they'd come the moment they knew. I forgave them because that's what I did. The dependable daughter who understood that accidents happened, that life got busy, that I couldn't expect to always be the priority. But something had shifted inside me, something beyond the medical crisis. A numbness had settled deep, a resignation that felt almost peaceful. I went home after 4 days, resumed my life, took my medications, went to work, existed. My book stopped selling entirely. The publisher remaindered the copies. I saw Echoes of Tomorrow in a bargain bin at a grocery store, marked down to $2. I bought all 7 copies, took them home, and stored them under my bed. Spring came. Lily graduated with honours. Another celebration. More champagne. I drank too much and said congratulations until the word lost meaning. Summer arrived with oppressive heat. I felt tired constantly. The doctors adjusted my medications, ran more tests, told me to rest. I rested, but didn't recover. On a Sunday in August, I sat in the backyard while my family barbecued. They laughed about something I hadn't heard. I watched them through the window, a tableau of belonging I couldn't quite enter. My chest hurt, different than before, sharper. I stood, walked inside, climbed the stairs to my room, lay down on my bed. The ceiling cracks had grown, 9 major ones now, spreading wider. The pain increased. I thought about calling for help, decided against it. They were having such a nice time outside. I didn't want to ruin another moment with my needs. I closed my eyes. The pain peaked, then began to fade into something softer, almost gentle. I thought about my book, about empty chairs, about a family who loved me in theory, but never in practice, about being the daughter who'd learned to need nothing and became nothing in the process. The sounds from outside grew distant. Mum's laugh, Dad's voice, Lily's brightness. The ache in my chest eased completely. And then there was nothing but quiet. I opened my eyes to sunlight streaming through my childhood bedroom window, hitting my face at an angle that meant early morning. Sophomore year of high school morning. I knew this light, this moment, this feeling of waking up 16 years old. But I wasn't 16. I was 28. I had been 28. I had died in this room, 12 years from now, alone, while my family barbecued. I sat up slowly. My hands were smaller, unlined. My body moved without the chronic fatigue I'd carried for years. My chest felt clear, strong, whole. This wasn't possible. But neither was remembering my own death, remembering 12 years that hadn't happened yet, remembering the slow erosion of self-worth that would lead to that quiet ending. I walked to the mirror. 16 looked back at me, before college, before the years of writing, before echoes of tomorrow, before the empty bookstore and the dentist appointment and the hospital and the bargain bin, before I'd learned to accept being forgotten. I understood what this was, a gift or a curse or a cosmic reset. It didn't matter which. What mattered was the knowledge burning in my mind. I knew exactly how my life would unfold if I made the same choices. I knew the path that led to dying alone while my family laughed outside. I would not walk that path again. Downstairs, I heard Mum making breakfast. Lily was singing in her room. She was 14 now, still in her golden phase of being everyone's darling without the dental school ambitions yet. I got dressed slowly, deliberately, chose clothes that felt right, not clothes that wouldn't draw attention. A small difference, the first divergence. At breakfast, Mum asked about my weekend plans. In my first life, I'd said I was staying home to work on my college applications. The dutiful answer, the expected answer. I'm going to the city, I said instead, to visit some bookstores. Dad looked up from his newspaper. That's a long trip for browsing. I want to talk to the owners, learn about the business side of books. Mum and Dad exchanged glances. Lily kept eating her cereal, unconcerned. This version of me hadn't started writing yet. I was still in the talking about, maybe possibly someday writing phase that would stretch 3 more years before I actually started. That sounds interesting, Mum said carefully. But maybe we should go together. I'd rather go alone. Polite, but firm. In my first life, I would have agreed immediately, grateful for company, for their attention. Elena, Dad started, I need to do this myself. They let me go. Not happily, but they let me. And I took the train to the city, spent the day walking through independent bookstores, talking to owners, learning what I'd need to know. Not just about writing, but about publishing, about marketing, about making readers care. I came home with 3 notebooks full of information and a clarity I'd never had before. That week at school, my English teacher, Mrs. Chen, she'd gotten married last month, it was Mrs. Ramirez now, assigned a personal essay. In my first life, I'd written something safe about overcoming a fear of public speaking. This time, I wrote about being invisible in your own family, about loving people who forgot you existed, about the quiet tragedy of being taken for granted. I didn't show it to anyone before turning it in. Didn't ask Mum to read it. Didn't seek Dad's approval. Didn't run it by Lily. Mrs. Ramirez kept me after class the following week. Elena, this essay, it's powerful and concerning. Is everything okay at home? Everything's fine, I said. I just needed to tell the truth. She studied me for a long moment. You have real talent. Have you thought about writing seriously? Every day. Then do it. Don't wait for permission. I started that night. Not the novel I'd write in my previous life, the one that would barely sell. Something different, something sharper. I wrote about a girl who died and came back, who learned that second chances meant nothing if you repeated first mistakes. I wrote in secret, during lunch periods and after school, on weekends when my family assumed I was doing homework. I filled notebooks, then graduated to my laptop, password protecting everything. Months passed. I turned 17. Lily turned 15 and got braces. I remembered this, the way Mum and Dad made such a production of it, taking her to 3 different orthodontists to find the best one. When I'd gotten braces at 15, they'd taken me to whoever had the earliest appointment. I noticed these disparities now with clear eyes. I didn't resent them anymore. I simply observed, detached, using them as fuel for my writing. College applications arrived. In my first life, I'd applied to state schools, afraid of the cost, afraid of being a burden. I'd gotten into a good program but stayed close to home. This time, I applied to Columbia, NYU, schools with prestigious creative writing programs. Schools far enough away that I couldn't drive home for Lily's minor emergencies. Elena, these are so expensive, Mom said, looking at the applications. I'll get scholarships, financial aid, I'll make it work. But Lily will be applying to colleges soon, and dental school after that. Lily's education isn't my responsibility. The silence that followed was heavy. I met Mum's eye steadily, waited. That's not what I meant, she said finally. Yes, it was, Dad intervened. Let's just see where you get in, then we'll talk about the money. I got into Columbia, full ride, merit scholarship and grants covering everything. I accepted before they could suggest staying local. The summer before college, Lily had a minor health scare, not serious, but enough to consume my parents' attention completely. In my first life, I'd cancelled my orientation trip to stay home and help. I'd missed meeting my future roommate, missed the bonding experience, started college already behind. This time, I went to orientation. Let Lily have Mum and Dad's full attention. Arrived at Columbia ready to build a life that was entirely mine. I wrote relentlessly that first year. Finished my novel by December, started querying agents in January. Got rejections, then interest, then representation by March. When I came home for spring break, my parents asked how school was. I said it was good. Didn't mention the agent. Didn't mention the manuscript making rounds with editors. Kept it private, protected. Lily was stressed about her SATs. Family dinners revolved around her practice tests, her anxiety, her future. I ate quietly and listened, a ghost at my own family's table. My agent called in April. Elena, we have an offer, a good one. I took the call in my dorm room, alone, and cried when I hung up. But these were different tears than I'd shed in my first life. These were for myself, not from the ache of being forgotten. I signed my contract privately, worked with my editor remotely over the summer while my family focused on getting Lily ready for college. She was going to Northwestern, a good school, not great. Mum and Dad were beside themselves with pride. My book, The Girl Who Returned, came out the spring of my sophomore year. My publisher arranged a signing at a bookstore in Manhattan. I didn't tell my family, didn't invite them, didn't give them the chance to choose something else. The store was packed. NYU students, Columbia students, people who'd read advance reviews. I read to a full room, signed books until my hand cramped, looked up into the faces of strangers who'd chosen to be there. Afterward, I walked back to my dorm alone and sat in the quiet satisfaction of a dream fulfilled on my own terms. The girl who returned got reviews. Good ones. Sales started steady and built. My publisher wanted the sequel. I delivered it ahead of schedule. By my senior year, I had 3 books published, a modest following, enough success that, promising, had become established. I graduated with honours. My family came to the ceremony. Mum cried, Dad beamed, Lily hugged me. They asked about my plans. I'm staying in New York. I have a book deal for 3 more novels. That's wonderful, Mum said, but have you thought about something more stable? Something to fall back on? Writing is what I fall toward, not away from. I moved into a small apartment in Brooklyn. Cheap, but mine. I wrote during the day, attended publishing events at night, built a network of other writers who understood the work. My 4th book released to starred reviews. My 5th hit the New York Times bestseller list for 2 weeks. My 6th stayed there for 7. Years passed. I wrote, published, grew, travelled to conferences and book tours, met readers who told me my stories mattered, that my words had helped them feel less alone. I called home monthly, visited twice a year, maintained polite distance. Mum and Dad asked when I'd move back. Lily asked when I'd settle down, find someone, stop living like I was still in college. I didn't explain that I was living exactly how I wanted. That this life, this busy, full, chosen life, was everything my first one hadn't been. On a Thursday in October, 12 years after my rebirth, I received a call from Miss Peterson. I almost didn't answer. I hadn't thought about her in years. Elena Hartley? Her voice was older, shakier. I don't know if you remember me. Of course I do, Mrs. Peterson. How are you? I'm well, dear. I'm calling because, well, I wanted you to know that every time one of your books releases, we order extra copies. We have a whole display now. Local author Elena Hartley. People ask about you constantly. My throat tightened. Thank you. I've always wondered. That first signing. You seemed so sad. I've thought about it over the years. I hope everything turned out okay. It did, I said. It really did. After we hung up, I sat at my writing desk and looked around my apartment. Books everywhere, mine and others, awards on shelves, photos from events, a life built from words and will. My phone buzzed. A text from Mum. Lily's coming to visit us this weekend. Will you be in town? Would be nice to see you. I considered lying, considered inventing an obligation. But I was in town, and I was curious. I drove home Friday evening. The house looked smaller than I remembered, worn around the edges. Dad answered the door, older now, his hair fully grey. Eleanor, what a surprise! Mum invited me. She did? I didn't. Well, come in, come in. Lily was in the living room looking tired. Dental school had been harder than she'd expected. She'd switched programs twice, finally graduating last year. Now she was working at a practice in Chicago, living a life that looked good from the outside, but clearly wasn't fulfilling her. Elena, she said, standing to hug me, you look great. So do you. We both knew I was lying. At dinner, the conversation felt strained. Mum asked about my writing. I gave basic answers. Dad asked if I was seeing anyone. I said no. Lily scrolled through her phone, barely present. Your sister has a new book coming out, Mum told Lily, forcing enthusiasm. Lily looked up. Really? Which one is this? My 10th? Silence. Lily's eyes widened slightly. 10? Already? I write a lot. We saw your name at the bookstore last week, Dad. said, "You had an entire shelf." "Several, actually," I said. "I publish 2 books a year." More silence. They were doing math in their heads, realizing how much of my life had happened outside their awareness, calculating years of missed launches, missed success, missed opportunities to be proud. "We should have been there," Mom said quietly. "At your first signing." I looked at her, at all of them. "Yes, you should have." "The dentist appointment," Lily started, wasn't more important than my dream, but you chose it anyway." Lily's face crumpled. "Eleanor, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize." "You were 14. You didn't realize a lot of things." "But they did." I turned to my parents. "You both knew. You saw how much it mattered to me, and you chose not to show up." "We didn't choose," Dad protested. "You did. Every time you prioritized Lily's routine over my milestones, you chose. Every time you remembered her needs and forgot mine, you chose." "We love you," Mom whispered. "I know you do. I've never doubted that. But love without attention is just words." The dinner ended quietly. I slept in my old room, surrounded by ghosts of who I'd been. Woke early and found Mum making coffee in the kitchen. "I'm sorry," she said without preamble, "for all of it, for making you feel invisible." "I don't need your apology now. I needed you then." Is it too late?" I considered the question. In my first life, I would have rushed to reassure her, would have said it was never too late, that we could start fresh, that I forgave everything. But this life had taught me different truths. "It's not too late," I said finally, "but it's not the same either. You can't undo 12 years of absence. You can't recreate those moments. What can we do? Read my books. All of them. Then we'll talk." I left that afternoon. Drove back to Brooklyn with my windows down, cold October air clearing the residue of old pain. Weeks passed. My 10th book released. Hit the bestseller list immediately. My publisher threw a party. The room was full of people who knew my work, who'd shown up for me, who'd proven that family wasn't just blood, it was choice and presence. My agent introduced me to a filmmaker interested in adapting my 3rd novel. We talked for hours about vision, about translating story between mediums. I went home energized, already imagining the possibilities. The text came from Lily late that night. I finished The Girl Who Returned. It's beautiful and heartbreaking. Was it about us? I stared at the message, typed and deleted 3 different responses. Finally settled on truth. It was about becoming someone despite instead of because. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Sehos appeared again. Then, "I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago." "Yes, you should have." The next text came from Mum. "I've read 4 of your books. Your father is reading 2. We had no idea how talented you are, how much you were carrying." I didn't respond immediately. Let them sit with their realizations, their regrets. These were consequences they'd earned. Days later, Dad called. "Eleanor, I finished your books. The ones your mother and I could get through so far. I'm calling to apologize, but also to tell you something." "What's that?" "I understand now why you left, why you don't come home much. We failed you as parents, not because we didn't love you, but because we didn't see you." My eyes burned. "No, you didn't." "Is there any way to fix this?" "Dad, I spent my entire I caught myself. I spent my entire childhood trying to be seen. I'm not doing that anymore. If you want a relationship with me now, you have to choose it actively. You have to show up. Then we will, if you'll let us." I thought about my first life, about dying alone, about empty chairs and missed moments, and being loved in theory but abandoned in practice. "We'll see," I said. Months turned into seasons. My parents started small, remembering my birthday, texting before book releases, asking about my life with genuine curiosity. Lily drove to New York twice, taking me to dinner, listening to stories about my writing process, without making everything about herself. They were trying. It didn't erase the past, but it acknowledged it. That was something. My 11th book came out. My publisher organised a signing at Miss Peterson's bookstore. She'd retired, but still owned it, and she'd requested the honour personally. I stood in front of a packed room, looking at faces old and new. Mrs. Peterson sat in the front row, beaming. Behind her, in the second row, I saw my parents. Lily beside them. They'd driven 6 hours without telling me, wanting to surprise me. For a moment, I felt the ghost of my 16-year-old self, the girl who'd craved this exact scene, who'd needed their presence to validate her worth. But that girl was gone. I'd mourned her and rebuilt something stronger. I didn't need them here to prove my value. But having them here, by their choice, added something I hadn't expected. Not completion, I'd found that alone. Just a different note to the symphony I'd composed. I read from my new book, a story about forgiveness being earned, not owed, about rebuilding relationships on foundations of mutual effort, about learning that some endings were beginnings in disguise. After, they waited patiently through the signing line, didn't rush me, didn't demand attention. When they reached the table, Mum's eyes were wet. "We're sorry we missed the first one," she said. "I know, but we're here now." "I see that." Dad placed a hand on the stack of my books beside me. "Every shelf, that's what the bookstore owner told us. Your name is on every shelf now." It took a lot of work to get here. "We should have supported you from the beginning," Lily said. "Should have seen what you were building." "Yes," I agreed. "You should have. No false comfort, no easy absolution, just truth." We went to dinner afterward. Conversation flowed more naturally than it had in years. They asked real questions, listened to real answers. I told them about upcoming projects, about the film deal, about my life in Brooklyn. Lily talked about quitting dentistry, about wanting to do something creative but being afraid. I didn't offer solutions, didn't tell her it would be okay, just said, fear is data, not destiny. We parted with genuine hugs, promises to stay in touch that felt possible, not obligatory. I drove back to Brooklyn as the sun set, the city lights rising ahead, like a constellation of dreams made real. My phone rang as I crossed the bridge. My agent. "Elena, I have news. The film deal is finalised, and Netflix wants to talk to you about adapting your entire backlist as a series." I pulled Dad over, hands shaking on the wheel. "Say that again," she laughed. "Your entire body of work. They want to build a universe around your stories." I sat in my car, watching the city breathe, and let myself feel it. The validation, the success, the proof that choosing myself had been the right path, even when it meant walking away from people I loved. That night, I sat at my writing desk and opened a new document. Started typing a story I'd been avoiding for years. The story of a girl who died alone and came back to live differently. The story of invisible daughters and second chances. The story of learning that being forgotten was a choice. Theirs, not yours. And that your response to being forgotten defined everything. I wrote through the night, words pouring out like confession. This wasn't for publication. This was for me. For the 16-year-old who'd woken up with impossible knowledge. For the 28-year-old who died quietly. For every version of myself who'd learned to matter by refusing to disappear. As dawn broke over Brooklyn, I saved the file. Titled it Empty Chairs. Someday I might share it. Someday I might not. The choice was mine, and that freedom was worth more than any bestseller list. My phone buzzed. A text from Mum. Thank you for letting us be there today. We know we can't make up for what we missed, but we want to try. We love you, Elena. We see you now. I read it twice, felt the old ache, the old anger, the old grief. Let them pass through me without holding on. Then I typed back, I see you too, that's a start. Because it was. Not an ending, not forgiveness, not absolution. Just a start. A chance to build something new from ruins of something old. I closed my laptop and walked to my window. Watched the city wake up below. Thought about empty chairs and full rooms, about dying alone and choosing yourself, about the quiet power of walking away from people who forgot to love you loudly. My name was on every shelf now, not because I'd waited for permission or support, not because my family had believed in me, but because I'd believed in myself enough to build something real from the ashes of what they'd let burn. That was the story I'd tell next. The story of phoenixes who don't need witnesses to rise, who burn and return and rise again, carrying nothing but their own determination. I was Elena Hartley, published author, bestseller, daughter who'd learned to exist without needing to be seen. And in my second life, that was more than enough. It was everything.